Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depends upon where you are in this world. Our part of the world is Miami, Florida, at the headquarters of the Miami-Dade Fire Rescue Training Division, specifically the Dive Rescue Bureau. I'd like to introduce our guests that are live with us today. Brian Drake, Dive Rescue Instructor, and Gray O'Hara, Dive Rescue Instructor. Gray has quite a colorful past and background. He doesn't like to brag about himself, but we like to brag about him because he's a member of our department. Before we make the introductions and go on with our topic today, I want to thank our sponsor, which would be Key Hose. I have my hands on it every day because I am project manager for our 2-inch hose standpipe project. Not that that is what's going to be good for your department. I'm going to introduce you to as well. But it's what works for us, and we have found no hose that has better flow resistance, kink resistance, durability, and thermal and abrasion resistance than Key Combat Ready. There's various grades of Key, but as much as I sometimes complain about my department, I must say that we buy the very best when it comes to fire hose. I would also like to introduce Walter Javier, another one of our Dive Rescue instructors. And Walter, you came from us from the ranks of lifeguards, correct?
Correct.
And we're also going to have Walter talk about the summer camp that you do for handicapped children, which I think is another thing that we're all very proud of. So a little bit about myself. I'm the oldest guy in the room, captain on Miami-Dade Fire Rescue Department since 1978, and began my fire service career in Wheaton, Illinois, about 20 miles west of Chicago. So I recently transferred to the training division, and I work side by side with these. Not that I'm a diver, I'm not. I sink like a brick, but these guys are aquanauts. So before we go on to our guests online, I'm going to ask Gray, would you tell a little bit about yourself? And I'm going to ask you to boast because we're all very proud of your background.
For my career that I've been here, I come from a different background. Before I got on the department, I spent 8 years in the Marine Corps as a force recon and combat diver. Upon getting out of the Marine Corps, I went into commercial diving and worked as a commercial diver in the Gulf of Mexico as an underwater welder. And then from there, throughout the whole time frame, continued with my dive instructing. I've been working professionally as a diver in some capacity for going on 32 years at this point in time. And pretty much that's my background. I've been instructing for over 30 years and teaching public safety diving, all aspects of diving, rebreathers, everything for that whole time frame.
We have his
should be right there, brother.
Where is it? It looks like the New York version of the Yellow Pages, his book of certification. Gray, we're happy to have you on the department and have you with us today. Fellas, we're going to have to move up. So Brian, bring your beautiful butt up to the camera right here.
Afternoon.
This guy does a lot of music.
Yes, you got to get the. His name's Brian Drake, second generation fireman. Been with the county now 11 years. 5 of those years I've been working, actively participating in the Dive Rescue Bureau. Luckily, I was fortunate enough to be Gray's, I guess, a mentor. Gray is my mentor, and learning a lot from him. Oh, sorry. This is the portfolio of Gray's certifications. We could get that right there. These are all instructor level certifications, which is not just a weekend course, if you will.
Okay, Asha, go ahead.
I've been fortunate enough that I've been working with Gray as my mentor and learned a lot from him. Actively pursuing a new equipment change for our department, trying to bring us up to NFPA standards, and that's pretty much it. Pleasure to be here.
Come on up here, man.
Yeah, how's everybody doing? My name is Walter Javier. I've been part of water safety and water training and ocean rescue since '94. I worked also with another fire department where I was a rescue diver there prior to coming over here, transferring to Dade County. And I've been part of the dive bureau now for what, a year or something like that. But I've been a rescue diver for our department since I got hired. And again, I was with Ocean Rescue since '94. I'm very proud of that. I do a lot of stuff on the side, but as far as my role here, once I got the bid here, I just bring more of the surface water rescue stuff. I'm really into the surface water rescue stuff, and also again trying to better the program. We have an amazing program thanks to these guys that just made it what it is, and it continues to grow. We're very proud of the program. We're the biggest dive rescue public safety dive team in the world, and I'm very proud of that. And just to be a part of it is really cool. As far as my time off, what I do is I do a surf camp for kids with autism. I've been doing that for 7 years now, which I'm very proud of as well. I do it every summer. This is the 7th summer that we do it. And kids in the autism spectrum, we do that. We get them out in the water. We get them surfing. We get them paddleboarding, just all types of aquatic stuff. And around the year, I do adaptive water sports for quadriplegics and paraplegics, people that were injured either in the military or just from whatever traumatic accident. And I do that currently. That's year round. So I'm just happy to be here. Thank you guys for having us.
Okay. Captain Mike, maybe tell us a little bit about your water rescue capability and maybe an experience with you, sir.
Our water rescue is, we have companies in the area of the beaches or shorefront that are surf rescue companies. They have their dive rings, they have their surfboards, and they have tethered lines. We also have divers in our rescues companies where they put the divers into the water. We have divers on duty. We don't have it as in-depth as you guys do with dive equipment on every rig. We don't have that. We only have it on our rescues, and we have it available for us. They also have a unit at Special Operation Command that will go out with extra dive equipment if we need it. But our dive capabilities are limited. We have a diver. Usually he's on every fire boat. And depending on the time of the year, we have at least 3 fire boats, but sometimes we have 5 or 6, depending on the type of year. In the summer, we have more boats. We have fast water boats.
And what's your background in the fire service, Captain Mike? I mean, you'd have to be hiding under a rock not to know it, but just for the record.
Just for the record, I did 27 years with the New York City Fire Department before I retired. I had a little of time with the NYPD before that. And I just want to say to everyone out there listening and to all my friends who reached out to me yesterday, thank you for your thoughts and prayers. We needed it. We still need it. Unfortunately, we're burying guys. It seems like about once a week we're losing somebody else. And it's scary, but it is what it is. We're not going to change it.
Captain Mike, it is very fortunate that we have so many people that don't realize that the 343 brothers that were killed that day is a mere pittance of the folks that have died and will continue to die from long-term effects of working at Ground Zero. So you guys are far from out of the woods, and yesterday was a 17th anniversary, and unfortunately, some people either want to forget or are just not comfortable with remembering, but we can never forget. We can never forget that we are at war. Today, we are still at war with a determined, evil, and diabolical enemy that wants to destroy our way of life. And if you don't believe that, then you're hiding under a rock. You got your head in the sand. So, Captain Mike, thank you for being with us. Chief Hovelman, sir.
There it is. Yeah, sorry.
Jason.
Jason Hovelman with the Florissant Valley Fire Protection District Battalion Chief. I got some exposure to water rescue. We don't have a big contingency of water rescue equipment at Florissant, although we do have a sizable amount of shoreline of the Missouri River, and we're actually in the process now of trying to be better prepared for that. But at Sullivan, we've always had a lot of boaters, where I volunteer, a lot of drifters and floaters and swimmers in the river down here. And I did some of the dive stuff for about 23 years and just got out of that a few years ago. And really the biggest difference down here is there's no visibility, and it's not as deep. So a lot of murky, nasty water, and I'm glad to have retired from that, to be honest. It's a hard job. It's a tough job. So I commend the guys behind you for doing what they do.
Daryl, could you introduce yourself, sir? But also, we're very fortunate to have your special guest on board today, and thank you so much for bringing them on. Go ahead, Daryl.
How are you doing? I think most of you know me. I'm Captain Daryl Liggins with the Oakland Fire Department. And more importantly, I brought in a friend and colleague today. His name is Anthony Sanders. He is a hardworking addition to our fire department, making it better in a lot more ways than just being the captain of our current fire station that does our water rescue stuff. He's also volunteered to take on a light duty job down here at Fire Prevention to help with a lot of our fire prevention work as well. But he is a real asset to our organization in the area of water rescue.
So it's my turn now?
Yeah, it's his turn now.
So Anthony
You have the
Sanders,
floor, sir.
Captain at Station 12, manager of our current water rescue team program, which in 2003, our department had a Type 1, heavy duty fireboat that was closed down in 2003, and since then it's been taken on by a station that's about a mile away from shoreline to do all of our water rescue stuff. So we're pretty challenged in our response capabilities, but our current fleet, what we have left is about a 29-foot surface rescue boat with a pump on it that'll put maybe 1 3/4 hand line into service. So anything that we do in our department is pretty much bottom driven. It's a constant fight to get any sort of funding or anything like that for the stuff, but we do have a lot of people in our department that are interested and motivated in water rescue. So Daryl asked him in and kind of put our insight on what we do in Oakland, and I'm interested to hear what other agencies are doing to kind of see if maybe we can get some ideas here.
Can I ask you an off-the-wall, foul ball, crazy but water-related question?
Love those.
Did you grow up in the San Francisco Bay Area?
Yes.
Okay. My question is, what do you think it's going to be? Is it humanly possible to jump in the water at Alcatraz and swim to shore? That's what I want to know.
Yes, we have people that do it all the time. We have a member of our fire department that does it almost on a weekly basis as part of his exercise. It is possible.
Jeez, amazing. Amazing. Oh, here's a guy that, because he knew that we were going to have a nautical Aquanaut theme, is actually wearing his bathing cap with him. It's Dan Shaw. Dan, you look great in that flesh-colored bathing cap. Thank you so much. Dan,
yeah, I wish that was true. Actually, it's built for speed, so I can just go right through the water, Bill.
Okay, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Thanks for having me again. Always a pleasure. As Bill said, I'm Dan Shaw. I'm a Deputy Chief of Operations in Fairfax County Fire and Rescue Department in Fairfax, Virginia. I happen to be one of the Traditions training guys and co-author with my brother, Doug Mitchell, of 25 to Survive. So Fairfax, water rescue related, we are separated from the great state of Maryland and District of Columbia by the Potomac River. So that generates quite a bit of water calls for us. We have our fireboat, which runs out of one of our southern stations. I think it's just about a 40-foot fireboat. But the majority of our calls either generate out of the Potomac River, specifically Great Falls. Great Falls is an Olympic training ground for people in kayaking. I think it drops about 76 feet in about a mile. So it produces some pretty great rapids, but because it's an Olympic training ground doesn't mean we only attract Olympians. We get a lot of people out there who probably should not try kayaking there. So that's where a lot of our swift water rescue comes into play. And obviously, like most large bodies of water, it separates two states. So you always have two states responding to the same emergency. When we have Great Falls calls, so you have Virginia on one side with us, and then Montgomery County, Maryland on the other side. So there's a lot of interoperability. And because that's a national park, you get Eagle One, which is the national park helicopter, who will swoop down and pick people out of the water. So a lot of interoperability happens there. And then obviously with the 400 square miles of our county, we have a healthy amount of lakes, which generate, again, some more flat water rescue that our boats respond to. And that's one of the things I hope we talk about, not just swiftwater, but flat water. It tends to be one of those things that many people overlook. And we have an over-reliance on the swiftwater assets. And that really demands that our rank and file firefighters who show up on an engine company can execute some action right now on a flat water rescue when there's a witness drowning. So it's a lot of things go on there. I'm sure I'm speaking to the choir of that group that is behind you, who are much more well versed than us. But you know, I tend to think that our numbers will increase. Obviously, we're awaiting a hurricane coming towards us, or probably the remnants of it. And right now, we're about 18 inches over in the amount of rain we typically get in a year. So it's a lot of people making bad decisions about driving in the waterways, and then that becomes a water rescue for us for their poor decision making. But looking forward to another great conversation.
Dan, is Fairfax deployed any of their urban search and rescue task forces?
They have not. I mean, we are the staging ground. I think we got a few teams sitting at AP Hill and just south of Fairfax, waiting to be deployed. Obviously, we're one of the states that is was going to be hit, so I think there's a kind of a sit and wait right now, waiting to decide whether or not we deploy Virginia Task Force 1, which is our team, or Task Force 2 coming out of Virginia Beach, and then obviously Maryland's in the same boat. So I think they were just looking to see what the storm's going to do, then decide what teams they deploy.
I want to give a shout out to Dan McMaster. He's one of the organizers of the Andy Fredericks training days. It was supposed to start this Monday. Dan, if you're there, which you probably are not, but it was the responsible and smart thing to do. He called the conference off. Yeah. And you guys got bigger fish to fry right now. And I think collectively, all of us here, because we've gone through this. I lost my house, and we share your pain, and our thoughts and prayers are with everybody in those mid-Atlantic states and along the southern coast. So,
yeah, Wells Wilson and Dan do a great job with that conference, really keeping Andy Fredericks' legacy alive, and just do a fantastic job of really putting on a tough call, but the right call.
Yes, yes. Commander Lamping, sir.
Yes, sir. Good morning, everybody. Good morning from the West Coast. Clark Lamping with the Clark County Fire Department here, Station 11 on Bravo Platoon, right on Las Vegas Boulevard. We are in the high desert, so we don't have very many lakes or rivers or anything like that. Clark County Fire Department is responsible for the city of Laughlin, which borders the Colorado River. So the Laughlin fire stations have a boat, and in the summertime, they're extremely busy with vacationers making poor decisions as well. But for the most part, our water rescue in Las Vegas area is swift water rescues during the monsoon season. We don't get a lot of rain, but when we do, it comes very fast in very short periods of time. And the entire Las Vegas Valley is pitched from west to east. So all that water moves east very rapidly. We have multiple flood channels that go underground and dump all that water into Lake Mead. Well, unfortunately, we are so hot here in the desert that we have hundreds and hundreds of homeless people who take up residency inside these flood channels, which are underground. And so when we get a monsoon style flood, it can be very severe, and we do quite frequently rescue homeless people who are washing down towards the lake, especially some of our stations on the eastern side of the valley, where they're catching an enormous amount of debris and people washing down. So in the Clark County Fire Department, we do not have a dive rescue team, anything like that, but every firefighter is Swiftwater certified, and we do an annual refresher on that. And then we do have a technical rescue team, which I am a part of, and that technical rescue team has some more equipment and a little bit more training for Swiftwater incidents.
Okay, thank you, Clark. And we tend to equate the desert with absence of water. What we're going to do right now is we're going to show a video from, I believe it's Mesa, Arizona. Sarah, this would be the woman rescued from the water video. If we could go ahead and show that, please. And I know it'll take a moment or two for you to bring it up.
Hey, I got to go real quick, Cap. I might be
Okay,
back.
you got to run, Clark. All right, go ahead, brother. Oh, here we go. You seen this? Okay, that's right. Great, we can do it. Okay, Sarah, that's good. That's good. Good move on their part. Okay, well, that's Clark. Let's go back to us. Here we go. And Brian, if you would, I want you to do two things for us. First of all, can you explain the extent of our deployment with our urban search and rescue task forces to the hurricane areas? Why don't you go ahead and right?
The extent of our task forces with pull
over. How's that, Mike? Is that better? Okay.
Yeah. So going back.
Right in front, Bill.
Right in front.
Okay. Right there. You got it.
Right there. Yeah, full 80-person team with full swift water capabilities and about 12 boats, mostly John boats. They did get some experience. Most of our team did get a lot of experience during Katrina. Not so much in the swift water, but just water rescue and clearing houses and searches to that extent.
Yeah, let's hold up this map and give you an idea of the amount of water responsibility we have. Brian also.
From there, great. All right, so my 2,000 square miles. I think we're the second in regards to county. To water. Well, on that map, all these little blue lines everywhere around here, and these blue squares, are all the and rock quarries, and of course, right here on the ocean front, miles of and pretty much have a water lake on every single falls from people driving into the water.
Okay, Mike. I understand that we're gonna have to get pretty close to this. Okay, what we're gonna do next is, could you hear any of that? Okay. All right. What we're going to do is Sarah, we're going to have Brian narrate a recent exercise we did with one of our air rescue Bell 412 helicopters and one of our airboats. It's interesting. You're going to explain where we got the funding for our airboats. So if Sarah, if you could run, it's going to be 5 videos and you can just run them 1 through 5 consecutively. Okay. Brian, you're just going to talk through when she shows the video.
All right. All right. So here what we're doing is right now. I have a lot of airboaters, duck hunters, sportsmen that go out there and fish and hunt, and we do get a lot of airboat accidents. These airboaters like to soup up their boats with nitrous, superchargers, so these things can get pretty good. Okay. Right now, what we're doing is a helo op, where we're going to lift a patient to air rescue to be transported to our trauma center. The first thing it does is the flight medic will drop down, assess the patient, and then prepare them for the Stokes basket evolution. All right, so here we should be, the flight medic's calling down for the Stokes basket. He's assessed the patient. We've got him prepared. They're going to throw down an initial tagline. Yes. So one important thing with the rotors spinning in the air and the humidity, that cable creates a static charge, and it will, if you touch it with your bare hands, will shock you. What we have right there is called a grounding rod, and basically it's a old axe handle that we put a metal rod to with a kind of like a jumper cable. And then you can attach that to any metal surface on the boat, and it'll ground out that electrical charge. So that's the first thing we have to do when we're lowering down that cable. If not, it will shock you and it will throw you back. So once it's grounded out, you're pretty clear. The medic is getting the patient rigged up. He's going to be hoisted with the patient. All right, here's the basket coming down. Now you can't really tell from the camera angle, but that bird is about like 30 feet above our heads. It was does create a lot of updraft. We have to secure the airboats on top of dry ground as best we can. We had 2 airboats tied together, and when the aircraft is in front, it pushed and it moved us back a pretty good ways. So it is a pretty dangerous operation, but necessary.
And Brian, we started working with the new airboats that they had an airplane. They responded to an airplane crash.
Yes, the Marine Service Bureau was out there conducting training and setting up a course to evaluate their students. And as they're picking up, they had an aircraft go down probably about 2 miles from where they were training at, and they were able to respond very quickly.
And
we got these airboats off a grant. I believe it's from Boeing. The Everglades is in the glide path of MIA, which creates a lot of air traffic. We've had multiple plane crashes, a very notable one being the ValueJet aircraft air crash. When was that again? In the mid 90s. And then in 1972, the Eastern Airlines as well. So they saw fit to provide us with some airboats, and we're very fortunate for that. So now the flight medic's going to get hoisted with the patient back into the bird. And then we have that tagline right there to keep that Stokes basket from spinning. It's got a breakaway shackle, carabiner at the tip. That way, if it does get caught up and we can't deploy it, it will just break and fall to the ground. Now the second flight medic is guiding the Stokes basket back into the bird. This was great to see. It was great to witness right there up close. I mean, just that rotor wash, you'd be very impressed on how much that moves these very large boats that we airboats that we have so easily. Just jostle them. All right, once that patient's nice and secured, the second flight medic is going to secure the door, and then they will be able to take off and head to that trauma center.
Bye-bye.
All right.
Sarah, you can fill that one now. Just go to the next one. Very good. The last one, I believe.
Little flyby that our helicopter pilot did there. Most of our helicopter pilots are ex-military, so lots of experience. These guys are very confident, very skilled pilots. They can put these things down just touching a toe and offload patients off to the trauma center.
All right. Who just joined us. Can you hear me now? Nobody has ever had a problem hearing me. So, all right, can't hear you. All right, how about now?
We can hear you fine, Bill.
Okay, very good. You want to go ahead and introduce yourself there, young man, and tell us a little bit about yourself and maybe any water rescue experiences?
I'm a probationary firefighter. I just got picked up about them. So one of the things that we had some really interesting experiences with in Albuquerque was we had drainage canals that had 90-foot high embankments and about 45 to 50-foot flat across the bottom. And what people don't understand about the desert in particular, unless they're familiar with it, is that when we get rains, because the ground is so dry, it tends to run very quickly downhill and collect very quickly. So when we would get our seasonal rains, those canals would fill, to depths of 30, 40 feet with water moving at over 30 miles an hour. And it would come down from the mountains sometimes. So you'd have a dry canal where kids would be skateboarding, bicycle riding, hanging out. And then when that canal that drainage unit would fill with water, it was unbelievable. And we would have to set up points to try to rescue people. We knew where the bridges were and such. And we actually almost lost 2 firefighters. One firefighter got really severely injured when he got caught up in the turbulence at one of these low-head dams where we were trying to produce a rescue. So a very refined system over the years to where we learned where to pre-position assets as, ropes and hooks and things to tie off and such. So it turned out to be, we had some pretty horrific early on experiences, but we became quite proficient. And in doing water rescue, we worked with netting systems and things like that, where we developed a net that we could deploy to try to catch people, and it would pull them to the shore. The great fear there is when you catch them, they're in the water, and you have to pull them very quickly to the side. So we had some really fascinating experiences there. Not so much with the Rio Grande that you can pretty much walk across through most of Albuquerque. It does have times when it would get some water, but most of our flooding would occur downtown and in low-lying areas where we'd have to do simple rescue with airboats and flat-bottom boats. But the drainage ditches, those culverts, boy, they were a fascinating problem and a very deadly problem. And during my tenure there, I'll bet you we lost at least 15 or 20 civilians during my time with the department, generally children who get caught up in those drainage canals, and then we'd find their bodies, a day or two later, generally speaking. So fascinating experience.
I hear you, boss. We're just about at the halfway. It's time for me to give a shout out, a very hearty endorsement to this guy right here, Key. This happens to be the Combat Ready. As I said, I'm project manager for our 2-inch hose standpipe program, and I'm not saying that's good for your department. It's what works for us. When we did our homework, and you need to do your own homework in terms of your building and your systems. Remember, staffing is not the key. Staffing is the fire doesn't care. The fire doesn't care how many people you have. You don't determine the size of hose by how many people you have. You better get the people. It doesn't matter if that fire is in a little town somewhere or in New York City. It's going to have the same dynamic. So we're doing right now, in one of our scenarios, we have these buildings that are actually, they look like big high-rise building, but they're actually exclusive high-end towers where you have like 4 apartments in a semicircular configuration, 2 very stairways with a very, very, very small hallway. And one of our evolutions is to improvise a Cleveland load. As much, I hate that word when it comes out of my mouth, but improvise a Cleveland load, which we don't use because you can't deploy it dry. But we can take 3 75-foot sections of key combat ready 2-inch hose with 2.5-inch couplings, and in a space of about 12 feet, improvise a coil, a Cleveland load of 225 feet of that key combat ready, and at about 65 psi, we can bump the kinks out of that and have a full coil. So you can't kink this hose. You'd really have to go out and try. Key makes other brands that are a little bit less expensive than the combat ready, but they're all good. As I've said in many of these before, don't go cheap on hose. Before I turn this, first I'm going to ask Clark, what kind of call you were on, Clark, and how many babies and mothers did you save?
Las Vegas is now a safer place because we managed to wake up a homeless woman sleeping in a booth at McDonald's. We sent a truck company out to handle that situation, 4 highly trained firefighters on about a $1.1 million piece of apparatus to shake a homeless woman and say, hey, ma'am, you're not allowed to sleep here, while a whole crew of McDonald's employees stood around and watched. So,
Clark, I think we're talking about
Vegas, you will be safe. Thank you, Truck 11.
Clark, I think we're talking about some kind of award here. I don't know when we're going to insert it, but you're going to get an award, Clark, okay? All right.
Thank you, sir.
Now, before we turn the program over to our dive rescue guys that are going to explain how this program got started, and like so many things in the fire service, it started with a tragedy, I'm going to ask our dive instructor from Oakland. We're not used to the cold water, brother. And I know that this has got to be, I've swam in the Pacific Ocean before and I didn't like it. So in fact, it made my voice go up about 5 pitches. So how do you deal with operating that kind of, in that kind of conditions, and how does that affect your victim survivability for drowning?
The water temperature definitely has a vast impact on the survivability rate of our victims. And that's one of the reasons why we're trying to push to have more people trained that operate along the waterfront. Like I said, our water rescue station is about a mile from shore in the Chinatown downtown area of Oakland. Daryl's station, or Captain Liggins, rather, the station that he works at is out by the Oakland airport, which is pretty much surrounded by water. But the waters out in Daryl's area are, no deeper than 10 feet in all those areas. So there's a much different complication out there with the water problems that we're going to have out there. But all along the waterfront between Oakland and a town called Alameda, it's an island city just off of Oakland, are probably 3 other firehouses that are the first due to that shoreline. So many of our rescues are affected in a lot of ways before we even get there, mainly but mostly by uncertified personnel. Not trained in surface water rescue. These are just firefighters that see a need and they jump in the water and go get somebody if they know how to swim. So we're currently trying to bring up a curriculum that's being brought in at the state fire training level. We have a state fire training class that's certified in open water rescue swimmer. That's a curriculum that got certified in the last couple years. And hopefully in October, we have some certifications now for small boat, anything smaller than, I believe, 20 feet, and then anything larger than 20 feet up to 32 feet as a state fire training certification. Whereas before, the only training that people could go out and get was from the Coast Guard, Coast Guard level certification, which takes a lot more work. But specifically to talk about the water temperature, the survivability rate of our victims is a lot smaller. I was thinking about a specific incident that I ran with Captain Liggins. He was the shore-based engine for a car that went into the water right over by the Oakland airport, was submerged in about 10, 12 feet of water. And because Captain Liggins' crew and none of the crews responding on scene had certified rescue swimmers, it took us about 25 minutes before we could put anybody in the water. And at that point, it was more of a body recovery than a rescue at that point. So those are the real limiting factors for us, is our ability to get to the scene quickly, because the survivability rate in 58-degree water is not very long.
Yeah, I on that call, I ended up in the water and it was very, very cold. We did transport a patient just in case their temperature was very cold. But when our water rescue team arrives, they generally have dry suits. Do you have both dry and wet suits?
No, we have dry and wet suits. So it's us being in the water, but even with us, we were in the water for probably it took us probably 15 minutes from being in the water just to locate the car. And then when we located the car, it was about 6 feet submerged. So we were, diving underneath to try and break windows and pop doors open to get that person out. It took us probably 35 minutes to get the person out of the water. So by the time it was all said and done, we were in the water about 45, almost 45 minutes to an hour. And we were starting to start suffering from, mild hypothermia and that sort of thing. So Captain Liggins and, the people that went in the water were wearing their station uniforms. So at least we had some protection, whereas Captain Liggins there was in and out probably in no more than 5 minutes out of the water.
All right, fellas, I'm going to ask whoever would like to be the spokesman. You're very eloquent.
Thank you.
And now, Walter, will your address to our audience here today be in English or Espanol?
Whatever they prefer, Portuguese.
Oh, in Portuguese too, Portuguese. On a serious note, a lot of the beginnings of this dive rescue program is a result of the death of a great guy that I came on the job with, Sean O'Dare. And Walter, if you can take front and center stage here and tell us a little bit about how they started and how we're organized.
All right. Well, again, like I said before, we are fortunate enough to be the biggest public safety dive rescue team in the world. We have approximately 500 divers, a little bit less than that, and we're very proud of it. Everybody here is well trained. We have annual proficiency exams every year. We do PITs. Right now, currently, I'm co-teaching with the Bureau IC, Captain Iglesias, a dive rescue PADI class that we're certifying our divers to just get more training out of it. But going back to the inception of the program, obviously, like most things in the fire service, something catastrophic has to happen for good things to come from it. And this department is no exception. Sean O'Dare was a firefighter like the captain alluded to. They came on together. He was 28 years old. He was a diver already, a public safety diver. And he was based out of Station 1. And he responded to a call of a girl in a canal. And as he went in the canal, at that time, we had no dive equipment on our units. He went in there and he did what most of us would do, confirmed girl in the canal. He dove in there with just a mask and snorkel. She was in a Jeep, and he went on a breath hold. Unfortunately, he did not come up. He had a shallow water blackout. And like I said before, unfortunately, like most things happen in the fire service, or a lot of things, something like this had to happen. I don't want to get into the politics, but supposedly the people, the powers that be, we didn't have funding for dive equipment on our rigs. I would say about a month after his fatality, they ended up finding money for dive equipment. So because of Sean O'Dare, we have the dive program that we have. And at the time, the first Bureau OIC was Captain Ed Brown, which was like Instructor Gray, someone that came from a military combat diving background, and he started the program. Moving forward, now we are pretty much 100% ERDI public safety diver certified. The minimal qualifications to just get on the SRA team would be you have to have your advanced open water. Again, we're working on many things. We're constantly working here in the Bureau to better our program. Like these guys said, we're surrounded by water. That's not a secret. And all of us come from some sort of background. Yeah, so currently all of our rigs have, whether it's a rescue company or a fire truck, we all have dive equipment on all our companies. We're going from, I don't know how your departments are staffed, but we have currently horse collar BCDs on our rigs. And the reason why we went to that, similar to the military, is because it's kind of one size fits all. Thanks to the guys behind me, which have been working for years now to upgrade it, we're going to our jacket style BCDs with redundant air sources to make us compliant. and for public safety diving. And so we are in the process of changing that. You know, we're going from our horse collars. There's a big transition time for our department, which is huge. But like you guys well know, we're about the 6th, 7th biggest department in the country. So gear costs money, and we have a lot of divers to gear up. So, you know, the politics behind that. Yeah, yeah.
Okay. And but we as divers.
We have approximately 480, more or less. 492 right now certified. Again, I say that loosely because every year we have a minimal qualifications that every diver has to meet. And that is 12 dives, 12 CEUs, and they have to pass an annual proficiency test. That's annually. We have to have all our divers. So it's coming towards the end of that fiscal dive year. So if people don't recertify, they have to go through a whole process of remediation to reinstate them as SRA divers.
Can I just ask a quick question?
Sure.
That was a great description of your department, and obviously we all know that, you know, no one has as robust a system as you all do. So for the folks out there that were listening, I had a couple of quick questions. You talked about, what is a PIT?
Well, it's an exam. What we do is kind of like a specific training that we do, like quarterly training drills. Like, yeah. So it's a test. Like, for example, like monthly, we would have regulator malfunction PIT. You know, and that's pretty much an evaluation. It's an exam. It's pretty much training for that specific thing. So whether it's regulator malfunction, whether in this case we're doing some rescue diving certification classes that are also performance, you know, enhancing training that we do just quarterly, monthly, and we're trying to do more of that. But as you guys well know, we have so many divers and we have minimal as far as staffing goes here. It's pretty much it's hard to get to all of our divers. So what we do, for example, like I said, we will put out a class and then we get whoever wants to participate in that class. As far as mandated stuff, all our divers have to have 12 dives and 12 CEUs. What that means is we have to have 6 at least of those 12 dives have to be battalion unit drills, on duty training, at least 6 of those. And that will give you the CEUs for that. The other 6, we give our guys the ability to go and do recreational dives, to make them enjoyable as well, to have that leisure, you know. And as far as our annual proficiency, that's consistent throughout. Every single diver every year has to meet an NFPA standard, which is a swim evaluation, ERDI standard, which is an 800-yard mass fin snorkel swim, followed by 500-yard goggles only. Then you have to do a 200-yard tired diver tow, and then you have to do treading water. All of that has to be within, you only get 15-minute break in between, and there has to be a point system that you have to meet. So you have to have a minimum of 12 points. All of that is timed. So every diver has to annually meet that standard, whether you have 30 years on or 1 year on.
And you're able to do that with over close to almost 500 divers.
It's not easy. It's not easy.
That is amazing. So another follow-up question, which is phenomenal. And Bill, thank you for bringing everybody together. So, you know, right now, you know, the nation's bracing for what could be tremendous flooding and the subsequent fallout of that. And I know your chief very well. He's a great friend. But are you able to deploy, like, to some, if needed, say, you know, Charleston or one of the other communities, Columbia, becomes inundated? Can they call on you and say, can you deploy 8, 10, 12? Do you have teams that deploy to help? Because I don't think anybody matches that level of expertise, except maybe some California-based operations. But as far as the East Coast goes, you have to be the gold. You are the gold standard. I haven't heard anything comes near what you can do.
Well, if you don't mind, Cap, what what we have now is our urban search and rescue team, which has the Swiftwater, are already deployed. They were deployed yesterday, I believe. So they're already en route. As far as our dive rescue team in itself, we are in the process of making a specialized team, full face piece, dry suit, full nitrox, everything certified to be deployed to major incidents like plane crashes, cruise ships, anything that's substantial. We have, apart from our regular dive rescue team, we have also what we're trying to make an elite team just to be deployed to specific things like that, catastrophic thing.
Right. That's what I was wondering about. I know the USART team always has that component, but that specific talent that you have there, what a tremendous asset to the nation if you can get that done as you just said so eloquently, a unique dive rescue team. Amazing. We're having audio problems. You need to be almost centered to grab the audio. There you go.
Can we go about 5 minutes over? Because we're going to go down. We have a very unique opportunity here. We're going to go down below the water level of the pool. We've got a diver in the pool.
Yeah, no, please feel free to go as far as you need to go.
And we operate in pairs, but one of the divers that's been in the water since we began this presentation had a family emergency, so we got another guy there. Oh, and one requirement that we did not explain, you've got to look great in a Speedo bathing suit if you're going to be with the dive program, okay? All right, just thought I'd bring that
So
up.
I fit one qualification. Is that what you're telling me?
I'm going to put Gray on the horn here. He has something else to talk to.
Sir, just to add into what you were saying a little bit earlier, our goal here and what we've been doing over the last 5 years with the program is we spent a lot of years evaluating nationally. We did we looked over the Lighthouse Report. If you're not familiar with that, it was based from the year 2000 to 2009, and it correlated a distinction between public safety diving and incidences that occurred to public safety diving individuals. And it was found that we roughly about 7 public safety divers die a year. One of my big advocacies that I fight for is the development of our training, not just our training here, but our national as well as worldwide training. I've been a PADI, NAUI, SDI instructor for decades, and we've had this discussion on several levels. And unfortunately, not that I don't agree with it, but the problem with the diving, how people look at diving is that it's recreational, it's fun. PADI and NAUI and everybody did an outstanding job of making diving be fun and enjoyable and go do all that stuff. Unfortunately, we don't desegregate between recreational diving and public safety diving as they do. If I talk to you about military diving, everybody goes, oh, Navy SEALs, Navy SEALs. If you talk about technical diving, everybody talks about rebreathers and things to that nature. When we talk about public safety diving or rescue diving, people, since all your agencies have some sort of rescue diving certification, they think it's on the same level of recreation. So when you're talking to management or upper levels, even city commissioners and councilmen, to that point, you have to emphasize that this is very similar, if not exactly in the same lines as if I were to go 25 yards offshore. That's like me going into a high-rise building and going up almost 10 stories when I start to get into that capacity. So if I'm offshore with a dive partner with a cylinder of air, where is my guys staging? They're staging 25 to 30 yards back, which is 75 feet away from me on the shoreline with a 90% capability, which they're supposed to be, which is fully dressed and maybe just have their mask and fins ready to go. You wouldn't ask somebody to go up into a high-rise building and fight a fire on the 7th floor with everybody on the bottom floor responding to that capability. You want the person either, depending on your SOPs and SOGs, either the floor below or 2 floors below, so that if you have to send a RIC out there, that the ability to get to that individual, your divers themselves, as well as the civilian that you're trying to go after, you have that capability there. So I think there's emphasis on some of the stuff that
as a group of individuals nationally, and dealing with especially like San Francisco and some of the individuals that are out there as well, and being all sort of water rescue and dive rescue capable, is that the emphasis has to come off of that recreational, this is fun type of diving. A lot of departments don't have full face masks. They don't have the capability of communications and comms. So they're talking about line tenders and line pull signals and things to that nature. And unfortunately, on our department, every single firefighter has a radio. So if I call for a Mayday, I can say, you know, firefighter O'Hara off of Squirt 2, I'm 50 feet inside the building on the Charlie Delta side. I got 1200 PSI, and everybody outside there is a firefighter, and everybody can come in and they can tear that whole building down around me and get to me. Underwater, if I pull 4 times for help, who do I have? I've got 12 guys up on the shore, but only 2 of them might only be divers, and everybody else is going to stand there going, oh, shoot, we got to get something moving here. So I think the emphasis is that we have to look at developing some sort of recognition of the severity of what we're doing with the dive, as well as setting some sort of training standard. There tends to be a lot of arguments about, and what my opinion is, minute things, which is a swim test or certain things to that nature. I don't care how long you can tread water. I don't care how good fast you can swim, as long as you can do the job, and you can do the job efficiently and be able to take care of yourself as well as your partner, as well as go ahead and implement the rescue that needs to be done at the same time. So kind of with what we're saying here and what you're talking about is that with the levels of training and having a response team go out there, it's not so much as we would love to, and we are working in that direction to get our guys trained to respond, but we are looking more at also helping develop that training for other agencies. The severity of dive needs to be brushed upon and actually really emphasized with some of the departments that are surrounded by water, that have a lot of calls. Because again, whether you have 1 call or whether you have 500 calls that are dive related, you ask that one person that you rescue how important it was to have a dive team, and I guarantee you there's going to be no argument on how important it was. So yes, we would love to work, and we are working in the capacity of making our area, and with the captain, we're going to show you some of the area that we have here, where we're looking at making this an instructional training center, where we can bring departments in from scratch, where they're not even certified, and we can take you all the way up through the instructor level, through public safety diving, and even into very technical aspects of confined space and underwater rescues, as well as surface rescues and so forth. So that, bear with us. It's going to be a little bit of time frame for that. But I think also in the interim portion of it is, if the rest of the agencies out there really start focusing and telling management and showing individuals that dive is something that is pertinent, and it is something that it can be fun when it's recreational, but when the alarm goes, it needs to be a serious situation.
Their boss, Chief Bobby Halton. We did this at Keith Fire Hose. We're going to take a little tour, and we're going to leave our refuge here, and hopefully that'll come back on. And it's going to be a little rough, but I'm going to have Gray, you want to kind of lead us? Okay. Okay. This is where the pool is. Can you hear us?
Yeah,
Can you
you're
hear us?
back now.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, just stick that. So right now, yeah.
Put the mic near Captain Gray there. We can't hear him. Got to put it. There you go. Cap, got to get right in front of it with the people behind you. Can Can you get the captain? Okay, so we can see the guy in the water, but we cannot hear.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Got you fine, Billy.
Okay. All right. All right. And then we've got a. Can you see the diver in the water?
Just his head, just the top of his head. Better now.
Okay. How about now?
Much better. Good. Good. Got the diver.
All right. We've got a. Is this also a mic? Yeah. Oh, we're gonna hook up a remote mic here. Okay. On this side. Okay. Over here. Okay.
There we go. Can you guys hear me pretty well now?
That's fantastic. You're perfect.
Excellent. Excellent. Okay. So can you see the diver that we have here?
The diver center screen.
Okay. That diver right there is one of our chiefs. He's in charge of training, and he's one of the ones that we've been training for our specialized dive team. You can see that he's got the full dry suit. He's got a full face mask. If he turns the back a little bit, you'll see our redundant air source and the capabilities that we have. We use a 19 cubic foot bottle. We only use a 63. We don't use a standard 80 cylinder simply for the fact that trying to get in and out of car windows or into confined spaces. When you take that cylinder and you get into a confined space, we have found that trying to back out a good 8 inches of that bottle that's already in there tends to become cumbersome and running into a lot of the obstacles underneath or inside of a vehicle. So we tended to go with the 63, which is more streamlined and easier for our divers to go ahead and reach their own hand back and be able to manipulate the cylinder a lot better than to have the 80. And that's why we went with the 19 for the redundant instead of having a 13 cubic foot as well. So it gives them a little bit more air capacity if they need. You want to take them? You want to?
Okay. Well, just as we planned, let's go over and take a look at just the track over there, and then we'll go down. And I don't think they care about the time. Let's don't worry about the time. Let's just do this.
Okay. This right here actually is the dedication. That's our basically our symbol that we use for the dive rescue training team. But this one right here is actually this plaque was for Sean O'Dare, and we've basically named the pool for him. Again, it was his line of duty death, and unfortunately, on February 16th of 1985, he did succumb to it. So unfortunately, with that being said, we were able to donate the equipment and get the equipment to us through his unfortunate demise. And from there, we dedicated the pool in his honor in that case. Oh, there's the flags. So as you can see, our pool itself is a 25-yard pool. 2/3 of the pool itself is over 12 feet deep. So it's a diving well. We don't have a very short area. We have a very, very short area of 5 foot of pool where the guys can stand up in. We're really advocates on when you're in your gear, you're in your gear. You don't take the mask off. You don't go ahead and hold on to the walls and things to that nature. Basically because when we're out in the canals, out in the lakes, or out doing any type of diving, there is no sides of a pool or anything that you're able to hold on to. We want to make sure that our guys are as comfortable as possible in their gear and continually stay that way. So with that and having the depth of the pool being 2/3 of the pool, we're able to make sure that all our divers stay with that. And that way we can come in through the, you can see, yeah. Is everybody still there?
You can hear it? Okay.
Yep. Well, Billy, we were hearing fine on the mic. Bill, we can't hear you right now.
Okay. As you can see, we keep our lockers here. These are our training lockers. We have our cylinders, all our different regulators, BCDs, any type of equipment the guys need. They can come up here and dive at any point in time. As Lieutenant Javier as he said, that all our divers need to have 12 dives and 12 CEUs. So we offer up the equipment here. Our office, somebody's usually staffing at any time, Monday through Friday, from 0600 to about 1800. So any of the divers can come up and do any of their diving that they need to do. They can use any of the mannequins. They can play with any of the different weight systems we have. You'll see when we get down here, I'll show you through the window, we actually have several props underwater. One of them is a 18-foot covert that Lieutenant Drake designed with some escape hatches. But basically what it is that it's we've had several calls through our canal system of trucks, tractor trailers, and several vehicles that have gone in where we've actually had air pockets. And inside those air pockets, we've actually had individuals that were viable victims that were still there, able to, were survivable. This right here, again, is our whole area for our compressor system. This is our bank system. It actually has air as well as nitrox capability. We are able to actually fill all of our SCBAs here as well. The way the compressor was designed, we can unscrew and screw on any of the SCBA bottles or put the adapters on for all of our cylinders. Over here, the cylinders are nitrox. We have anywhere from steel 120s for our deep dives or dealing with long times underwater. And then the rest of the stuff over on this end, sorry for moving so fast. Over here is also several different cylinders that we use for training. On this side here, this is our nitrox system. So we blend all our own mix on site. And again, that's something that we train all of our instructors to do and certify all our instructors in it. This right here is one of our several different equipment rooms. You can see we have various different stages of regulators. So we have different regulators in here. We have full face masks. We have all our dry suits. We can repair here. All of our two lieutenants and myself have gone through repair technician school, so we can repair any of the regulators, first stages, second stages, as well as all of our BCDs and alternate air sources and pretty much anything else that comes along down the line. So this right here is our playroom for the best description for it. We'll go down the hallway, and then we're gonna take you down the hallway real quickly, and we will show you exactly what it looks like underwater in our pool and what we do here. And as the captain said, we are in the bowels of our pool area. We're actually walking around the wall of the actual pool itself. It is on the second level, so we're able to facilitate. That's why we're able to get it as deep as we're able to. So, go ahead, step up over. Yeah. And if you guys can see here, this is one of our observation windows. Our instructors are able to come here. You can see on the side of the pool. Can you show over here real quick? We actually have a camera here where we can record our divers underwater. Flip it back. Right there, that's a car prop for us. What we utilize is that one end of it has a seat that simulates a victim would be in the back seat of a vehicle, and our divers would actually have to go through the front side of the covert. I'll have the diver show you. So what you'll do is you'll see him. He's actually tethered right now. So what he'll do is we simulate our diver going in, and he'll go in, and we can do out of air situations with him. One of the instructors will sit there with him as he goes through, and he can pop out the other side. We'll shut off his main air. He'll switch to his redundant air source. A lot of times we do that blacked out. And then where he just came out the other end, we'll put a mannequin, 165-pound mannequin. So what he'll do is he'll cut the seat belt that we have that straps over, and they'll actually pull the victim back through the actual covert. So it simulates them getting somebody from either the back seat of a vehicle or bringing them across from the passenger seat and have to bring them through the window. So
So we do several things that way, as well as the covert, which, like I said before, that's about 18 feet long, and it leads to an actual air pocket on one of the steps. So our divers will go up through there, they'll reel in, and come up and explain to the victim how to breathe off of a regulator, and we bring an actual 40 cubic foot regulator in there with a cylinder with a extended regulator on there. So we'll be able to simulate bringing them back out of the covert and out of the air pocket itself.
That's fascinating.
Fellas, we're going to finish this up. And I know we ran over a little bit, but I think it was well worth the while.
Absolutely.
And I think we just broached the surface. Captain Mike, any closing thoughts?
Billy, I think it was great. I think you guys are phenomenal with the training they do. And I really think you look good as part of the Blue Man Group.
Yes, but Mike, I don't want to hurt your feelings, Mike, but you will never be invited to swim in this pool, because there's rule number 1 is no peeing in the pool. Okay, Chief LeBron is saying goodbye to everybody. All right, Chief Overman, anybody else?
No, I thought it was great. I think you could probably do another episode on moving water. You know, there's so much stuff that you guys have capabilities of that can be shared throughout the country and the fire service that, you know, it's such a huge benefit, and what a phenomenal facility you got there.
And then Daryl, thank you so much for bringing your buddy on board. And I think we really need to spend more time. There we go. Oh, look at this. There it is. Let's see that. Yep, there's the brand. There we go. There's our plug for Key Hose. For your underwater fires, fellas, you can't beat Key Hose. All right? Combat ready. All right. Yeah. Go ahead. Take it, Brian. Take it.
I have it on good authority that entire pool.
If anyone has any questions or want to come down and train with us, you guys are more than welcome to. We'll definitely open up the doors for you guys. Any questions at all, you can email me at brian.drake@miamidade.gov or firefighter Gray O'Hara at O'Hara@miamidade.gov. And then also you get contact Captain Gustin. He'll get us in contact with you guys.
All right, and Daryl, any closing thoughts?
Daryl had a run, Bill.
Okay.
Daryl had a run.
All right, there, boss. Bobby Halton, any closing thoughts?
Yeah, you know, Gray, Brian, thank you so much, Chief. I know he can't hear me in the water, but that was fantastic. Bill, what a great presentation. You know, just a shameless request, if you ever think about putting together a nice piece on what it takes to put a program together, I agree with Gray's comments earlier that there's a gross misconception as to how important the training and is to this rescue dive. It's not recreational. There's nothing recreational about it. The nuances and the dangers are exponentially higher. And Brian, Gray, you guys did a wonderful job of describing the program. I think I would like to see much more information on it. I would welcome a full length, as long as you want to write article piece about it. Seriously. And I think, Billy, this would make a good follow-up. You know, there was so much that we talked about. There's so much depth to what these, you know, firefighters are doing here. The quality and the just phenomenal. I mean, I'm absolutely blown away. Again, Gray, Brian, everyone who participated, Billy, probably one of the best hangouts I've ever seen in terms of the importance of the content, especially with what's coming to the country right now and what exists all around the country. That the level of competence that you have needs to be shared. The awareness needs to be shared. 7 divers is far too many a year to lose. Far too many. And we need to do better. And obviously, you've taken it seriously enough to ensure that every possible every possible thing that can be taken care of is being taken care of in Miami-Dade, and you're looking to the future. And thank you. I'm blown away. Thank you.
All right. Well, for next month, until next month, for those of us on the East Coast, our thoughts and prayers are with you. And please be safe. Please heed the warnings. And for you brother and sister firefighters that cannot leave because of the sense of duty, we feel that bond with you. So, and let's don't forget the other extreme on the other end of this country, where these families have been separated for weeks and weeks and weeks on these deployment for these wildland fires. It seems like it's one extreme or the other, too much water or not enough. So until next month, stay healthy, stay safe, and may God bless you in our most noble profession.